The rain poured down on Manhattan as if the sky itself were crying. From the 30th floor of his skyscraper, Richard Wellington watched the drops stream down the bulletproof window, each one resembling a tear he couldn't shed himself. At 45, the real estate mogul had built an empire valued at $3 billion, but on this dark Tuesday night, everything was crumbling. The phone rang for the 10th time in an hour. Richard didn't need to look to know who it was. Another desperate investor, another bank demanding explanations, another life destroyed by his reckless decisions. 3 months ago, a corruption scandal involving bribing politicians for real estate project approvals had exploded in the media. The evidence was irrefutable: recordings, documents, suspicious bank transfers. Richard wasn't just guilty, he was the mastermind behind it all. Mr. Wellington, his secretary's voice trembled through the intercom. Mr. Marcus from Goldman Sachs is on line 3. He says it's urgent about tomorrow's deadline. Richard closed his eyes. The deadline, $300 million that needed to be paid by 5 o'clock Wednesday afternoon, or his company would be officially declared bankrupt. He had sold properties, liquidated investments, even pawned family jewelry. Still, he was $200 million short. "I tell him I'll call back," Richard murmured, knowing he wouldn't. The truth was even crueler. He had hidden the financial situation from his daughter Sophia for weeks. The 8-year-old still believed they lived on top of the world in their $15 million mansion in Long Island, with their 5 luxury cars, art collection, and 23 employees. How could he explain to a child that Daddy had lost everything to greed? While Richard sank into his despair, 15 kilometers away, in the abandoned basement of a decommissioned subway station, a 12-year-old girl named Luna Martinez was doing something extraordinary. Under the dim light of a nearly dead flashlight, she solved university-level mathematical equations in a notebook made of stapled garbage papers. Luna had lost her parents in a car accident 3 years ago. With no known relatives and an overburdened social assistance system, she had learned to survive alone on the streets. But Luna possessed something rare: a brilliant mathematical mind and an insatiable thirst for knowledge. During the day, when she could avoid security guards, she would sneak into the Fifth Avenue Public Library. At night, under awnings and in abandoned stations, she studied for hours, solving complex problems she found in discarded books. "If the population growth rate follows a geometric progression," she whispered to herself, writing numbers in her careful handwriting, "and considering the socio-economic variables, then the solution would be..." A rat ran across her bare feet, but Luna didn't even move. She was lost in the world of numbers, where everything made sense, where there was always an answer, where the chaos of real life couldn't touch her. The next morning, Wednesday, Richard woke up in his Italian leather chair, suit wrinkled, hair disheveled. He had slept only 2 hours. Sophia came down the elegant stairs for breakfast, wearing her St. Margaret Academy uniform, the most expensive private school in New York, which cost $80,000 a year. "Good morning, Daddy," she said cheerfully, kissing his forehead. "Did you sleep in the office again?" Richard forced a smile. How innocent she was, how oblivious to the approaching storm. "Daddy had a very busy night, Princess, but today will be a special day." He wasn't lying about it being special. It would be the day he lost everything. During the drive to school, Sophia chatted about her science project, about how she wanted to be an astronaut when she grew up, about how proud she was to have a father who conquers the world. Every word was a stab to Richard's heart. He stopped in front of St. Margaret's ornate gates, watching other privileged children being dropped off by private drivers and parents in cars that cost more than most houses. "Bye, Daddy, I love you." Sophia waved through the window as she ran to meet her friends. Richard hadn't even left the parking lot when his phone rang. It was Principal Harrison. "Mr. Wellington, I need to see you immediately. It's about Sophia's overdue account." Richard's stomach dropped. "To what overdue account?" "Sir, there are 3 pending monthly payments. That totals $240,000. I have orders from the administrative board to..." "I'll pay today," Richard interrupted, knowing he was lying. "Mr. Wellington, with all due respect, that's what you said last week. And the week before. If payment isn't made by 2 o'clock this afternoon, Sophia will be suspended indefinitely. The call ended. Richard looked at his watch. 9:15 in the morning. In less than 5 hours, his daughter would discover she was financially ruined. In less than 8 hours, his company would be legally extinct. But fate had prepared a twist that Richard could never imagine. At 11 in the morning, Sophia was in math class when the school secretary appeared at the door. "Sophia Wellington, please go to the principal's office." The girl's heart raced. Sophia had developed deep anxiety in recent weeks, noticing the adults' whispered conversations, her father's tense phone calls, the way he looked at her with sadness when he thought she wasn't watching. In the principal's office, Principal Harrison tried to be gentle, but his words were like blows. "Sophia, dear, there are some administrative problems. You'll need to go home early today." "What kind of problems?" she asked, her voice small. "There are problems that adults need to solve. Don't worry." But Sophia did worry. While waiting for her father to arrive, she heard fragments of conversations through the principal's half-open door. "Overdue payments. Financial situation. We can't make exceptions." When Richard arrived, his face was grey. He could barely look Sophia in the eyes while signing the temporary suspension papers. In the car, the silence was deafening. Finally, Sophia gathered courage. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Richard stopped at the red light, and for the first time in months, truly looked at his daughter. Tears began to form in his eyes. "Sophia, I made some mistakes. Very serious mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind that can completely change our lives." Sophia felt the world spinning. Her 8-year-old mind tried to process the unthinkable. "Dad, are we going to be poor?" The word hit Richard like a punch. "Yes, Princess, we're going to be poor." Sophia began to cry, not because she was afraid of poverty, she didn't really understand what that meant, but because she saw the deep suffering in her father. "Dad, is this why you're always sad?" "Yes." "And is this why I can't study at St. Margaret anymore?" "Yes." They drove in silence until Sophia, through her tears, said something that would change everything. "Daddy, can we stop at that park? I need to think." Richard stopped at Central Park. Sophia got out of the car and began to walk, trying to understand how her life had turned into a nightmare in a matter of hours. She sat on a bench near the lake, sobbing. That's when she heard a gentle voice. "Hey, are you okay?" Sophia looked up and saw an older girl, with torn and dirty clothes, but with the kindest eyes she had ever seen. The girl had tangled brown hair and held a notebook made of crumpled papers. I think my life is over," Sophia whispered. The girl sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "My name is Luna, and can I tell you something? Sometimes, when we think our life is over, that's when it's really beginning." "How do you know?" Luna smiled sadly. "Because I thought my life was over when my parents died, but then I discovered something incredible." "What?" Luna opened her homemade notebook, revealing pages and pages of complex mathematical calculations, perfect geometric drawings, and constellation diagrams. "I discovered that when we lose everything we thought was important, we find things that really are important." Sophia was fascinated by the drawings. "Did you make all this?" "Yes. When I don't have anywhere to sleep, I look at the stars and study their patterns. When I don't have anything to eat, I solve math problems to forget hunger. When I feel alone, I draw." You don't have a home?" "Not for 3 years, but I have something better." "What could be better than a home?" Luna pointed to her head. "I have a mind that no one can take from me, and I have faith that God has a plan for me." The two girls spent the afternoon talking. Luna taught Sophia about the golden ratio using leaves and flowers from the park. She showed how to calculate a tree's height using only its shadow. She explained how bees build hives using perfect geometry. "You're the smartest person I've ever met," said Sophia, amazed. "Intelligence doesn't come from expensive schools," Luna replied. "It comes from curiosity and persistence." Sophia shared her lunch with Luna, who ate every crumb with gratitude. For the first time in weeks, Sophia felt truly happy. "Luna, can I ask you a question? How do you maintain hope when everything seems impossible?" Luna looked at the sky that was beginning to darken. Because I learned that God doesn't give us challenges greater than our ability to overcome them. And because every problem has a solution, we just need to be patient and creative to find it. Meanwhile, Richard had realized Sophia had disappeared. He went into total panic, calling the police, mobilizing security guards, scouring the streets in desperation. At 7 in the evening, a security guard informed him that he had found Sophia in Central Park, talking to a street girl. Richard arrived at the park like a hurricane, running toward the bench where he saw his daughter laughing with a dirty and raggedly dressed stranger. "Sophia," he shouted, running toward them. "What are you doing? I've been looking for you for hours." Sophia stood up, still holding Luna's hand. "Daddy, this is Luna. She's incredible. She taught me things I never learned at school." Richard barely looked at Luna before pulling Sophia away from her. "Sophia, you can't talk to strangers, especially people like that. People like that." Sophia didn't understand. "Street people, Sophia, they're dangerous." Luna stood up calmly, hugging her notebook against her chest. "Sir, I would never hurt Sophia. She was sad and I just..." "Shut up," Richard exploded, all his frustration and desperation from recent months being directed at Luna. "I know exactly what you were doing, manipulating a naive child to get money." "Daddy, no," Sophia screamed. "Luna isn't like that." "Sophia, get in the car, now." Richard grabbed his phone and called the police. "I want to report an attempted kidnapping. A street miner trying to manipulate my daughter." "Daddy, please don't do this," Sophia begged, tears streaming down her face. Luna remained dignified, even as sirens approached. "Sophia," she said softly, "remember what we talked about regarding problems and solutions. Don't talk to her," Richard roared. When the police arrived, Richard presented his accusations with all the authority his money could still buy. Luna was handcuffed and put in the patrol car, her belongings confiscated, including the precious notebook with her studies. "Daddy, you're making a terrible mistake," Sophia sobbed in the back seat of the car as they drove away. "Sophia, you don't understand. People like her take advantage of our kindness." "Our kindness? What kindness, Daddy? When was the last time you helped someone? When was the last time you thought about someone other than yourself?" His 8-year-old daughter's words hit Richard like a shot, but he was too proud, too desperate, too lost in his own anger to admit the mistake. At the police station, Luna was processed and sent to an overcrowded juvenile detention center. Her notebook was thrown in the trash as worthless garbage. The girl who had spent years studying alone, who had developed mathematical theories on her own, who had found beauty and hope in the darkest places, was now locked in a cold cell, accused of a crime she would never commit. 3 days passed. Richard's company was officially declared bankrupt. The mansion was sealed by the bank. The luxury cars were repossessed. Bank accounts were frozen. Richard and Sophia moved to a cheap motel in Queens, sharing a tiny room that cost $120 a night. Money Richard had borrowed from an old friend. Sophia hadn't spoken to her father since the park incident. She sat on the narrow motel bed, looking through the foggy window, thinking about Luna. How was she? Was she cold? Was she afraid? On the 4th night at the motel, Sophia finally broke the silence. "Daddy, you destroyed an innocent person's life." Richard was sitting in the room's only chair, looking at bills he couldn't pay. "Sophia, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly. Luna helped me when I was sad. She taught me beautiful things. She shared with me the only thing she had, her wisdom, and you punished her for it. She was a manipulator." "Stop!" Sophia shouted, surprising Richard. "Stop lying to yourself. You're angry because you lost our money. You're angry because you couldn't protect our family. You're angry at yourself. And you took it out on a girl who just wanted to help." Richard looked at his daughter, really looked, and saw a maturity that frightened him. In 1 week, Sophia had aged years. "You want to know the truth?" Sophia continued, tears streaming down her face. "Luna taught me more in 1 afternoon than you taught me in years. She showed me that being rich isn't having money, it's having kindness in your heart." That night, Richard couldn't sleep. Sophia's words echoed in his mind. For the first time in months, he stopped thinking about money and began thinking about his actions. He remembered his own poor childhood, how kind people had helped him when he had nothing. He remembered his mother, who always said, "Richard, it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have compassion, you have nothing." When had he forgotten these lessons? When had he become so cruel, so selfish, so blind to others' suffering? The next morning, Friday, Richard woke up to find Sophia reading a children's Bible she had found in the motel drawer. "Sophia, where did you get that?" "It was here. And you know what's interesting? Luna told me some verses I didn't know." She opened the book to a marked page. She told me this one. "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me." Richard recognized the passage from Matthew 25:35. "Luna said that when we help someone in need, we're helping Jesus," Sophia continued. She said God sometimes disguises himself as a poor person to test our hearts. The words hit Richard like lightning. He remembered another verse his mother used to quote, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares." "My God," he whispered, "what have I done?" "You turned away an angel," Sophia said simply. Richard knelt beside the bed where Sophia was sitting. "Princess, I made the worst mistake of my life." "I know, Daddy. Can you forgive me?" "I already have. But, Luna, you need to ask her forgiveness. What if it's too late?" Sophia took her father's hand. "Luna taught me it's never too late to do the right thing." 2 hours later, Richard and Sophia were at the entrance of the juvenile detention center where Luna had been sent. The place was a gray and depressing building, surrounded by bars and barbed wire. Richard felt nauseous, imagining the gentle girl he had met for 5 minutes trapped in that place because of him. The social worker who received them, a tired 50-year-old woman named Maria Santos, listened to Richard's story with growing skepticism. "Mr. Wellington, are you telling me you want to drop the charges against Luna Martinez?" "Yes, all of them. I made a terrible mistake. Sir, yesterday you were absolutely certain she had tried to manipulate your daughter. Yesterday I was a proud fool. Today I want to do what's right." Maria studied Richard for a long moment. "Mr. Wellington, this girl arrived here devastated. Not just physically, but emotionally. She cried for 3 straight days, not because she was imprisoned, but because she said she had failed to help your daughter." Richard felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Furthermore," Maria continued, "we found some of her belongings. The papers she called studies. Our educational psychologist took a look and was shocked. The equations this girl develops alone are at graduate-level mathematics." "What?" "Luna Martinez may be one of the most brilliant mathematical minds we've ever encountered, and she was living on the streets, studying by flashlight, developing theories that could revolutionize entire fields of science." Richard collapsed in a chair. "Please, let me see her. She's been in the institution's hospital for 2 days. She developed pneumonia due to living conditions on the streets." Richard's world stopped. Will she be okay?" "Doctors think so, but it was critical. A few more days on the streets during this cold wave and—" Maria didn't need to finish the sentence. 20 minutes later, Richard and Sophia entered the detention center's small hospital. Luna was lying in a narrow bed, connected to oxygen tubes, her face pale and thin. When she saw Sophia, her eyes lit up weakly. "Sophia," she whispered, "are you okay?" Sophia ran to the bed, holding Luna's hand. "Luna, I missed you so much. Daddy wants to apologize." Luna looked at Richard, and he saw something in her eyes that destroyed him. Not anger, not resentment, but forgiveness. Forgiveness he didn't deserve. "Mr. Wellington," Luna said with a weak voice, "you don't need to apologize. I know you were protecting Sophia." "No." Richard approached the bed, tears streaming down his face. "I wasn't protecting anyone. I was being cowardly, proud, and cruel. You were helping my daughter and I punished you for it." Luna tried to smile. "Sometimes, when we're in pain, we hurt innocent people. I understand. How can you forgive me after what I did?" "Because Jesus taught me to forgive, and because I know you're a good man who made a bad decision." Richard knelt beside the bed. Luna, I didn't just ruin your life. If you had died because of me. But I didn't die. And maybe all this happened for a reason. What reason? Luna looked at Sophia, then at Richard. Maybe God used our situation to teach something important to all of us. What? That our true wealth isn't in what we have, but in the good we do for each other. Sophia held Luna's and her father's hands. Luna, when you get out of here, can you stay with us? We don't have our big house anymore, but we have a room at the motel and... Sophia, Richard interrupted gently, I have a better idea. He looked at Luna. Luna, I know I have no right to ask anything after what I did, but could you teach me something? What? How to start over, how to build something meaningful, how to transform failure into purpose. Luna studied Richard's face for a long moment. Why would I do that? Because, Richard took a deep breath, I want to create something that makes a difference in the lives of children like you, not to make money, but to honor what you taught me. What did I teach you? That intelligence and kindness are the only treasures that really matter. 2 weeks later, Luna was discharged from the hospital and all charges were dropped. Richard had sold his last valuable possessions, his Rolex, his gold cufflinks, even his diamond wedding ring, to pay for a lawyer and ensure Luna was released with a clean record. During this period, something extraordinary happened. Richard began researching education for underprivileged children. He discovered there were thousands of Lunas in New York, brilliant children who didn't have access to adequate education, young geniuses lost on the streets, talents wasted due to lack of opportunities. In his research, he found a group of Christian investors who funded innovative educational projects. He decided to prepare a presentation, but this time it would be different from any business he had done before. The night before the presentation, Richard, Sophia, and Luna were sitting in the small motel room, preparing the project. Luna had created a revolutionary mathematics curriculum based on her self-taught experience. Sophia had drawn the layout of their dream school. Richard had developed a sustainable business model. How do you think they'll accept? Richard asked nervously. Daddy, said Sophia, you're no longer selling buildings, you're selling hope. And hope, Luna added, is the only thing that's always in demand. The next morning, Richard entered the Christian Education Foundation conference room, wearing the only suit he still owned, now without the silk tie, without the gold watch, without the Italian shoes. He felt more nervous than in any business deal of his previous life. Gentlemen, he began, my name is Richard Wellington. 3 months ago, I was a billionaire. Today, I live in a motel with my daughter, and this is the best thing that ever happened to me. The investors looked at each other, curious, because I had to lose everything I thought was important to find something that really is important, the purpose of serving others. Richard told the whole story, his fall, his encounter with Luna, his terrible mistake, his redemption. He hid nothing, embellished nothing. I want to present to you a 12-year-old girl who developed university-level mathematical theories on her own. A girl who found hope where others see only despair. A girl who taught me that true success is measured by the positive impact we have on others' lives. Luna entered the room, no longer the hungry and raggedly dressed girl Richard had met, but still carrying the same wisdom in her eyes. She was nervous, but determined. Hello, she said simply. My name is Luna Martinez. For 3 years, I lived on the streets and studied alone. I want to share with you what I learned about how to teach mathematics in a way any child can understand. For the next hour, Luna presented her teaching method. She showed how to use everyday objects to explain complex concepts. She demonstrated how mathematics was present in nature, music, and art. She explained how she had developed theories about numerical sequences by observing patterns in the stars. The investors were fascinated. The board president, a 60-year-old man named Pastor David Chen, asked the crucial question, Luna, why do you want to teach other children? Because, Luna replied, when you find light in darkness, your responsibility is to share that light with others who are still in the dark. There was silence in the room. Then Pastor Chen smiled. Richard, How much do you need to get started? $500,000 for the first year. It's enough to rent space, hire assistant teachers, buy materials, and serve 50 underprivileged children. And what would your salary be? Richard looked at Luna and Sophia. Basic housing and food for my family. Nothing more. This project isn't about rebuilding my wealth. It's about building a legacy that really matters. Pastor Chen consulted the other board members. After 5 minutes of whispered discussion, he turned to Richard. Mr. Wellington, we've funded many educational projects, but we've never seen such an authentic presentation. We rarely encounter people who lost everything and chose to transform that loss into service to others. Richard's heart stopped. We're approving not just the $500,000 requested, but $1.5 million for the first 3 years of the project. Richard couldn't speak. Luna began to cry. Sophia jumped from her chair and hugged her father. With one condition, Pastor Chen continued. Luna must be officially recognized as co-founder and educational director, and we want to document her teaching method to replicate it in other cities. 6 months later, Hope School opened its doors in a renovated building in the Bronx. It was a sunny Thursday in September, and 50 underprivileged children aged 6 to 16 arrived for the first day of class. Luna, now 13, was at the entrance receiving each child. She wore simple but clean clothes, and her face radiated the same kindness that had touched Sophia's heart months before. In her hands, she held a new notebook, this time properly bound and full of blank pages waiting for new discoveries. Welcome to Hope School, she said to each child. Here you'll learn that it doesn't matter where you came from or what you don't have. You have something no one can take away, the ability to dream, learn, and grow. Richard watched from the entrance, wearing jeans and a simple shirt, carrying boxes of school supplies. He was no longer the real estate mogul in a $3,000 suit. He was simply a man trying to make a difference. Sophia, now studying at a public school where she had made real friends, came running with 3 classmates she wanted to introduce to Luna. Luna. These are my friends Maria, Carlos, and Jennifer. They want to see the school. Luna knelt to get to the children's height. Hello, do you want to see how mathematics can be magical? Maria, a shy 7-year-old, nodded hesitantly. Luna picked up some dry leaves from the ground and began showing how they followed the Fibonacci sequence. Within minutes, all 4 children were fascinated, asking questions and finding patterns in everything around them. That's what I love about this place, Sophia said to Richard as they watched. Luna doesn't just teach mathematics, she teaches children to see beauty in the world. Richard smiled, feeling a peace he had never experienced in all his years as a billionaire. She taught us that too, didn't she? The first month at Hope School was transformative. Luna developed a system where older children helped younger ones, creating a collaborative learning community. Richard discovered he had talent for educational administration, using his business skills to ensure the school ran efficiently. But in October, they faced their first major challenge. Marcus Rivera, a 15-year-old with a history of disciplinary problems, was expelled from 3 public schools. His social worker begged Hope School to give him a chance. Richard, the social worker said during a meeting, Marcus is extremely intelligent, but has serious anger issues. He lost his parents to gang violence and lived in bad foster homes. Your school might be his last chance before the juvenile system. Richard hesitated. Marcus had a reputation for violence, and they had small children at the school. Let's talk to him, Luna suggested. Everyone deserves an opportunity. When Marcus arrived for the interview, Richard felt fear. The teenager was tall, muscular, with homemade tattoos on his arms and an expression that screamed hostility. So, Marcus said defiantly, you're the saints who want to save lost children. Richard was ready to refuse, but Luna stepped forward. Actually, we're lost people who found direction helping other lost people. Marcus seemed surprised by the honesty. What do you want from me? Nothing, Luna replied. The question is, what do you want for yourself? I want the world to stop seeing me as trash. Then stop acting like trash, Luna said softly but firmly. You have a choice, Marcus. You can continue being a victim of your anger, or you can use that anger as fuel for something better. Marcus looked at Luna for a long moment. You don't know me. You're right. But I know pain. I know abandonment. I know the feeling that the whole world is against you. And how did you overcome it? Luna smiled. I found something bigger than my pain to live for. What? Purpose. The chance to transform my suffering into something that could help others. Marcus was accepted at the school, but the first weeks were turbulent. He fought with other students, disrespected teachers, and on one occasion broke a window during a rage attack. Richard, Luna said after the window incident, we need divine intervention here. That night, Richard, Luna, and Sophia gathered to pray about Marcus's situation. They asked for wisdom, patience, and divine guidance. The next morning, Luna had an inspired idea. Marcus, she said, I need your help with a special project. What kind of project? I'm creating a mentorship program where teenagers who overcame difficulties help younger children going through similar problems. I need someone strong enough to be vulnerable with children who were hurt like you were. Marcus was suspicious. Why me? Because these children can sense falseness from miles away. They need someone who really understands their pain, someone who survived. Reluctantly, Marcus agreed to try. Luna paired him with Tommy, an 8-year-old who had just entered foster care after his parents were arrested for drugs. Tommy hasn't spoken in 2 weeks, Luna explained. Maybe you can help him find his voice. In their first meeting, Marcus and Tommy sat in silence for 20 minutes. Finally, Marcus said, Hey kid, I know you're angry, I was too. Tommy looked at him for the first time. Want to know a secret? Marcus continued. When I was your age, I used to think that if I didn't talk about my emotions, they wouldn't be real. Tommy nodded slightly. But I discovered that when we keep all that anger inside, it starts poisoning us. How did you stop being angry? Tommy asked, his first words in weeks. Marcus thought carefully. I still get angry sometimes, but I learned to use that anger to motivate me instead of destroying me. How? Every time I feel like breaking something, I come here and help build something. I help children like you. Over the following weeks, something miraculous happened. By helping Tommy, Marcus began healing his own wounds. He discovered he had a natural gift for connecting with traumatized children. One day, while watching Marcus teach Tommy to solve math problems with infinite patience, Richard approached Luna. How did you know this would work? Because, Luna smiled, when you give someone the chance to be a hero in another person's life, they usually rise to meet that expectation. Where did you learn this wisdom? Luna pointed upward. Someone up there has quite a sense of humor. He turned a street girl into a teacher, a bankrupt billionaire into a school director, and a rebellious teenager into a mentor. Who are we to question his methods? In December, Hope School had become more than an educational institution. It was a family. Children who arrived destructive and hopeless were flourishing. Marcus had become the most sought-after mentor. Sophia was thriving at her public school and spent every afternoon at Hope School as a volunteer. But the final test was yet to come. 2 weeks before Christmas, Richard received a call that would change everything. Mr. Wellington, this is Detective Johnson from NYPD. I need to speak with you about your business past. Richard's stomach dropped. What about my past? Federal corruption investigations are still active. We found new evidence that could result in criminal charges. Richard looked through the school window. Seeing Luna teach a geometry class to 15 fascinated children, he saw Marcus helping Tommy with math problems. He saw Sophia reading to a group of younger children. Detective, Richard said calmly, I'll be available for any necessary investigation, but I have a question. Will this affect the school? Possibly. If there are criminal charges, all your assets could be frozen again. The school isn't my asset, it's an independent institution. But you're the administrative director. Your arrest would create significant problems. That night, Richard gathered Luna, Sophia, and Marcus in his small administrative office. I need to tell you something that could change everything, he began, and explained about the detective's call. So you could go to prison? Sophia asked, trying not to cry. It's possible, Marcus exploded. This is unfair. You changed your life. You're helping children. Marcus, Luna said softly, sometimes we have to face the consequences of our past choices, even after we change. But what about the school? What about the children? Sophia asked. Richard looked at Luna. Dear Luna, can I ask something of you? Of course. If I'm arrested, would you take over directing the school? Luna went pale. Richard, I'm 13 years old. You're 13 years old with more wisdom than most adults I know. Pastor Chen already said he completely trusts you. But what if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? Marcus stood up. Luna, you saved me. You saved Mr. Wellington. You saved Sophia. You save children every day. If anyone can take care of this school, it's you. And I'll help, Sophia added. All of us will help. Luna looked around the room, at the walls covered with children's drawings, at the science projects scattered on the tables, at the hopeful faces of her chosen family. Okay, she said finally, but we do this together. None of us alone, all together. Together, they agreed. A week later, on Christmas Eve, Detective Johnson arrived at the school with an arrest warrant. Richard was teaching a basic administration class to teenagers when the detective appeared at the door. Mr. Wellington, I need you to come with me. 50 children watched in silence as Richard stood up calmly. There was no fear on his face, only peaceful determination. Children, he said, sometimes life presents us with challenges that test our character. What matters isn't avoiding these challenges, but how we respond to them. Luna entered the room, followed by Sophia and Marcus. Mr. Wellington is right, Luna said to the children, and I want you to know that nothing changes here. This school is our home and we take care of our family. Tommy, the boy who had stopped talking and was now one of the brightest students, raised his hand. Mr. Wellington, when are you coming back? Richard smiled. I don't know, Tommy, but I know you'll be in excellent hands with Luna, Marcus, and Sophia. Will we visit you? Asked Maria, the shy girl who was now confident and vocal. If it's allowed, I'd love to receive visits. When Richard was being taken away, all 50 children gathered at the window, waving and shouting, We love you, Mr. Wellington. Thank you for everything, Richard cried, not from sadness, but from gratitude. For the first time in his life, he had built something that transcended him, something that would continue to exist and thrive even without him. In prison, Richard was placed in a shared cell with other white-collar criminals. His cellmates were shocked to discover he wasn't bitter or depressed. Man, said his cellmate, an accountant who had embezzled millions, how can you be so at peace? We lost everything. No, Richard smiled. I found everything. What? Purpose, family, faith. The tentar novamente. LJ continuar editar, only things that really matter. During the following 6 months, while Richard awaited trial, something extraordinary happened at Hope School. Luna, at only 13 years old, became one of the most innovative educational directors in the city. Her story attracted national attention, the homeless girl who became a teacher of geniuses. Universities began offering scholarships to Luna, but she refused them all. My place is here, she told reporters. These children need me, and I need them. Marcus graduated high school with honors and received a full scholarship to study child psychology. Instead of accepting immediately, he deferred for a year to continue helping at the school. Sophia thrived at her public school and started a program where children from privileged schools partnered with children from Hope School for science projects. Marcus's mentorship program expanded. Now there were 20 teenagers who had overcome trauma helping younger children. The success rate was 95%, numbers that traditional schools couldn't achieve. In June, Richard's trial day arrived. The courthouse was packed with supporters from Hope School. Luna, Sophia, Marcus, and 50 children were present. The prosecutor presented solid evidence of corruption. Richard pleaded guilty to all charges. Your Honor, Richard said when invited to speak, I don't come here seeking sympathy or clemency based on the good I've done recently. I come to accept responsibility for the crimes I committed. But I want the court to know that my punishment already began the day I decided that material success was more important than moral integrity. and my redemption began the day a homeless girl taught me that true wealth lies in serving others. The judge, a 60-year-old man known for severe sentences, studied Richard for a long moment. "Mr. Wellington, in 30 years as a judge, I rarely see genuine transformation. Usually I see performative repentance designed to reduce sentences." Richard's heart accelerated. "But I've read all the reports about your work at Hope School. I personally interviewed 12 of the children you helped. I spoke with Pastor Chen and other members of the Christian Education Foundation Board." The judge paused. "Of course, crimes have consequences. You will be sentenced to 2 years in prison, with possibility of parole in 8 months for good behavior." Richard nodded, prepared to accept his punishment. "However," the judge continued, "you will be allowed to spend 6 hours a day, 5 days a week at Hope School under supervision of parole officers. Because, Mr. Wellington, while you must pay for your crimes, it would be a greater injustice to deprive these children of the positive impact you're having on their lives." The room exploded in applause. Luna, Sophia, and Marcus ran to hug Richard. "Furthermore," the judge added, "I want to make clear to everyone present that the transformation demonstrated by Mr. Wellington proves that redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the difficult work of genuine change." 2 years later, Richard was completely released. Hope School had expanded to 3 locations, serving more than 200 underprivileged children. Luna, now 15, had written a book on educational methodology that became a national reference. Marcus was in college studying psychology, but continued mentoring children on weekends. Tommy, the boy who had stopped talking, was now in high school and wanted to become a teacher. Sophia, at 12, had founded a program where privileged youth worked with underprivileged youth on community service projects. On a sunny Thursday in May, Richard was in his small office at the school when Luna knocked on the door. "Richard, there's a surprise for you outside." He went out to find the entire school gathered in the courtyard. There was a banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. Wellington, 5 years of hope." But the biggest surprise was in the center of the group. His ex-wife, Margaret, who had divorced him during the scandal, was there with a man Richard didn't recognize. "Margaret!" Richard was shocked. "Hello, Richard. This is my husband, Dr. James Martinez." Richard greeted politely, confused about why they were there. "Richard," Margaret continued, "I came here because I need to apologize to you." "Apologize?" "When everything collapsed, I abandoned you and Sophia when you needed me most. I chose my comfort over my family." Richard studied his ex-wife's face. "Margaret, you had every right to protect yourself." "No," she shook her head. "Sophia told me the whole story. She told me about Luna, about how you changed, about this school. And I realized you became the man I always wanted you to be. And now," James, her new husband, stepped forward. "Richard, I'm director of the State Department of Education. I'm here to inform you that the Hope School model has been approved for implementation in 15 cities across the state." "What?" Luna appeared beside Richard, smiling. "Surprise, we submitted our proposal to the state 6 months ago. They want to replicate our program everywhere. This means," Margaret added, "that the work you do here will help thousands of children." Richard looked around, at Luna, now a wise and compassionate young woman, at Sophia, who had become a natural leader, at Marcus, returning from college with his degree, at the hundreds of children whose lives had been transformed. "You know what's most incredible about all this?" he said to Luna. "What?" "It started with you teaching a scared girl about geometry using tree leaves," Luna laughed. "And look where we've come. Where do we go now?" Luna looked at the sky, then at all the children gathered around them. "We continue doing what we've always done. One child at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one transformed life at a time." Richard hugged Luna, Sophia, and Marcus, his chosen family, forged not in blood or money, but in shared purpose and unconditional love. "Do you know which verse kept giving me strength during these years?" he asked. "Which one?" Sophia asked. "Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." "It's true," Luna nodded. "Even the bad things that happen to us, God used everything for something good. And the best part, Marcus added, is that this is just the beginning. As the sun set over Hope School, Richard reflected on his extraordinary journey. He had started as a corrupt and destructive billionaire. He had lost everything, his fortune, his reputation, his freedom. But in the process, he had found something infinitely more valuable, a family that loved him not for what he possessed, but for who he had become, a purpose that transcended him, and the peace that comes from knowing his life was being used for something greater than himself. "Luna," he said as they watched the children playing in the courtyard, "you saved me that day in the park, saved me and Sophia." "No," Luna smiled. "God saved us. He just used a homeless girl, a bankrupt billionaire, and a scared girl to show that miracles happen when we choose love over fear. And now? Now we continue being instruments of His grace, because," she looked at all the laughing children around them, "there's still much work to be done." And so, under the golden sky of a spring afternoon, three unlikely people who had found each other in the darkest moments of their lives continued their mission of transforming despair into hope, one child at a time, knowing that each life touched would create waves of goodness that would spread far beyond what they could imagine. Because sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised as losses, and sometimes the greatest miracles happen when we lose everything we thought was important and discover what really is.